Hello and welcome back to the Sporting Crypto podcast. Back again with another episode, a remote one this time once more. Today I've got the pleasure of being joined by Max Sebti, who is the CEO and co-founder of Score. How are you doing, Max?
Good, you?
Not bad. I think we're about to brace a second heatwave in the UK, and I'm sure where you are is going to be kind of similar, because I think the entirety of the EU and Europe seems to be afflicted.
Yeah, definitely some tough and rough days for us, because as people know, we don't have AC.
Yeah, it's the American mind cannot comprehend, can it?
Yeah, definitely.
Max, listen, you are probably the guest where I have the least insight on what you're doing. And so for those that have been on the show before, they would have known that they get an entire document of all the questions I'm going to ask, and the comms team can go and do their thing with it. But with you, I was like, I want to be the audience for this one. I want to ask all the dumb questions about what you're building. So why don't we start with kind of your background and how you got into crypto before going into what Score is?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, by the way, I appreciate that. That's going to be a funny one, I guess, because you're going to be asking a lot of questions. So that's cool. I don't like, I like conversations. I don't like pre-trained stuff. So that's amazing. So my background, I started in crypto in late 2016. I co-founded a company that was mining Bitcoin with green energy. I have a background mostly in business. I mean, I started in advertising, but I clearly realized that the ethos behind Bitcoin was something that was, I was resonating with. So built this company, realized that it was a bit too much of an engineering play. So sold my shares, went back to something more digital. The 2017 ICO craze, went obviously crazy, as I just said, and lost a lot of money, but I kind of start to get how people should probably take tokens to market. So tried to help a lot of projects, did a bit of consulting. Then fast forward 2020, late 2020, early 2021, joined the company called Human Protocol, and I was completely hooked up and transfixed by their vision, which was we could use a token to orchestrate work at a global level to annotate data for AI companies. So that was the early days of working at the intersection of AI and Web3. Then they had a very specific roadmap in mind for the product, and I wasn't really sure that I would like to kind of push this way. So the funny thing is, in the meantime, I met with another project that I then joined as a co-founder called CrunchDAO, and they were also using, and we were also using like a crowd of people, but this time not to annotate data, but to actually build AI models for financial institutions and hedge funds and sovereign wealth funds. So it was quite the same but different, but that was interesting because I was able to kind of combine my experience in data annotation to now learning how you can build an AI model from the ground up with the right approach and leveraging the crowd of people. In the meantime, I met with my current co-founders, Nigel and Tim, and we were joined by another one, a fourth one that we'll talk about later on. And they were and still are extremely well connected in the world of sports. And tech and entertainment, but mainly sports. We started working on different projects together. We did a bit of consulting, worked with people like Harry Kane. So we built an app for Harry called Cleats Club, and then started to have genuine and simple conversations with people within football. And at some point, we had two very key conversations. One with Brian McDermott, who now is part of our team, former Premier League manager. And he was playing for Arsenal as well. And we had another conversation with a customer, a sports hedge fund, about how they were struggling with data in football. So both of them were struggling for different reasons. But we just realized that we could have the same approach that we were having, for banks, for instance, using a crowd, trying to build a model, trying to find the right data. We could give it a shot and do the same thing in sports. And we decided to launch Score. And for us, the best way to go to market and to start building a strong model was to launch Score as a subnet on Bittensor. So the whole story is always linked to the crypto world. I think that's the reason why it's interesting too.
And so why don't we explain to the audience what exactly Score is? I think that's a good place to start.
So Score is a computer vision company. So in AI, there's text-based intelligence and there's vision-based intelligence. text-based intelligence, ChatGPT, all the open AIs of this world, they're way too ahead. It's impossible to keep up with them, and they're very, very good at what they do. And what they do is they ingest data from the internet. So text-based intelligence, weirdly, is as intelligent as the data you find on the web. What we're trying to do with Score is to bring another type of data to this kind of world of AI using images and videos. And we're applying this to football first because the go-to-market for us was super, super easy. We're well connected there, and we found a real problem in this world. So what we actually do is we train and build AI models to first track what's happening on the screen. So when the AI model sees what literally takes on a video, the AI model is able to track the movement. Then the second step is trying to understand the events. So tracking data, events data. And then there's a third step, which is putting together a scoring system, which means finding predictability or telling people what could happen next or what should have happened differently.
So let me wheel back, right? As the AI noob, we've got data in the form of imaging that can be ingested. You are then trying to work out what those images represent. And then third step, what that image is worth in a specific context. So example in basketball would be, can this model identify image? Can it verify that it's a player shooting a free throw? And then can it predict the likelihood of the next action?
Yeah, next
right?
action.
Okay.
Yeah, completely right.
Well, there we go. Problem solved. Everyone knows everything now.
So we can call it a
cut here, right?
Thanks for having me. No, so the reason why it's interesting is because I would say before, all the things like Bittensor or even what OpenAI, are doing right now, all the steps you just described were heavily using human annotations. And the problem with human annotations is it takes a lot of time and it's very expensive. So it prevents people from using in-game data, live data, real-time data. And also it also prevents some companies from building products because the amount of resources, money, time you have to put in to get to a good data set, or database, let's say, for people that are not using AI terms, is definitely pushing away a lot of companies. So you can think about, low-level teams in football trying to improve their scouting abilities. They can't do that because it's too expensive, because of all the scaffolding you have to put together, all the data annotation you have to pay for, yada, yada, yada. So what we're trying to do basically is we're trying to build something that is really affordable, fast and reliable, and open source. And the only way for us to build this is to use the crypto rails.
Yeah, people don't really get this, right? Which is, if you're building on a blockchain, you don't need to pay the server costs. So it's a bit of a revelation, right, with decentralized technologies, which is, again, when people are like, why crypto? This is a scam, blah, blah, all that kind of stuff. The value proposition of a network being distributed, which means that if you join that network, you can inherit the security, permanence, data, et cetera, means you don't have to go build your own structures there, as you mentioned, the scaffolding. But I want to switch gears and get us a bit more granular into the sports aspect of this, because usually we're talking about kind of like the B2B on the fan engagement and loyalty and sports ownership and sponsorship, whatever it may be. For this specific episode, we're obviously talking about how your model can impact performance, right? And so give us the A to Z of what is the current approach that sports teams are taking when using computer vision?
So yeah, that's a very good question. So what they usually do, so again, let's go back to our workflow in 3 steps. So we have, tracking, so annotation, we have events, and then we have, predictability, what we call inference. There's a lot of companies on the market at the moment that are good at doing one or two of the different steps. I don't know if we can mention names, but I can even give you names of companies that are doing this. For instance, in football, there's a French company called Skill Corner. They're really, really good with tracking data. So step one, they're pretty much state of the art. What happens on the market at the moment is, for instance, a club is going to be working with Skill Corner for tracking data, and then they'll have to go to Opta or to Genius to get access to step 2 and step 3. Or sometimes Opta is going to sell step 1 and step 2, and then they'll have to work with another company too. So what I'm trying to say is the market at the moment is, from a data provider perspective, it's hard to navigate. So most of the time, teams understand what they would need to achieve, but to get to what they want, they have to work with different companies. So they can't get everything from the same company. And even if they do, most of the time in the background, actually there's multiple companies working together for different reasons. But that's pretty much this. And then internally, what's happening at the moment is that top 10 teams in Europe, they have the budget to pay for a data science team. Some of them are well known for paying a lot of money for data science services, like Brighton, for instance, or Arsenal. But then it's a communication issue. So even if they have very advanced data science capabilities, then it's very hard for managers or scouts to really leverage the data they've been working on, because what we've experienced with ChatGPT and all of these chatbots is people need time, and they need to express what they need with their own language. And most of the time, data scientists and managers are not speaking the same language. So that's pretty much how the current state of the market is.
So we've got complex data sets that are expensive, and 2, hard to translate in non-data science ways. So if you're saying stuff like expected threat, or this player being in this position for 70% of the game rather than 60 gives you a 0.05% greater chance of winning in these circumstances, to a coach, like, they're going to go, okay, that's interesting, but actually I know that player is playing with a hamstring injury, or I know this guy has just gone through some personal issues and he's not going to be mentally ready. And so that's stuff that data can't account for. And so as a coach, obviously you're taking both of those things in to then make the best decision. I suppose from the data side, you just want to give the best data possible to help that coach make the decision.
That's why we're bringing this down to a score. Because that's why that's why our company is called Score. It's not because we work in sports. It's because we score the movement, we score the actions, the different things that are happening, and we have. And I'm sorry, I know it's very technical, but what we're trying to do is we try to have a quantitative approach to this, which would literally paint the reality as it is. So, for instance, if we feel, let's say, within our data space, if we feel that something is not going well, like a player is not running as fast as usual or not contributing as usual, instead of just saying, oh, expected goals are going down, we are going to try to understand and find correlations with other data points to understand if there's a psychological problem, if there's a risk of injury. So our ambition is to have a score that is able to really paint the reality, and then also provide helpful insights in plain English to people that are trying to achieve good stuff in sports.
Okay, and let's now discuss, right, why are you building this the way you're building it? Why are you doing it in a distributed way? What are the advantages? And what is the edge that Score has on kind of traditional counterparts?
So traditional model, you need lots of PhDs in a room. I mean, I'm saying physically in a room, working on complex math, plugged to very expensive computers at a level of a data center, working 24/7 on trying to find new data, and then build something that would be good enough for them to commercialize it. So before you start even talking to customers, you're already spending millions and millions of pounds or dollars. and you need to find talent, retain talent, and as you may seen recently, even Meta is now poaching people from OpenAI. So there's a huge pressure
for inordinate amounts of money as well.
Yeah,
if anyone hasn't seen the headlines, it's like they're being offered tens of millions of dollars to move.
Yes, yeah, like Saudi league money, I would say. So that's that. So it's highly competitive. You have to find talent, retain talent, find compute, because also you have to kind of beg NVIDIA, for instance, to sell you the GPUs. All the big companies are buying them before you do. It's highly competitive, and it costs a ton. Really, it's super stressful. And by the way, when you do this, you don't even know if you're going to end up doing something state of the art. So you're spending millions before knowing what's going to be the output. So now talking about Bittensor. Bittensor is, I would say, the biggest at the moment decentralized AI protocol. And the power of Bittensor is not that everything is happening on chain, or there's like very sophisticated smart contracts or whatever. The power of Bittensor is in its incentive mechanism. So Bittensor managed to create, I would say, an ongoing AI competition on chain, where everyone is incentivized to bring their A game and to build very strong and resilient models for teams that are pushing different problems within the network. And when you try to come and push something on the network as a team, you own what is called a subnet. So within the subnet, you have to go and tell people what you're trying to achieve in a very clear way, and you have to also tell people how they would be rewarded for working with you as machine learning engineers. The beautiful thing about Bittensor is, resides in the quality of the machine learning engineers that are competing there, but also its own tokenomics is built in a way where you can fund the research with the token. So every day people are competing on my subnet. They know they would make money out of my subnet. So they don't ask me to pay for compute. They don't ask me to pay for the salaries. And by doing this, by using the Web3 version of an AI research lab, I'm literally saving, and this is a real figure, I'm saving $500,000 a month.
And is that data as good?
It's better. Most of the time when you take a subnet, models end up being state of the art, just because of the incentive mechanism. And from a data perspective, it depends, because some subnets are built around the idea that they would create data. The beautiful thing with sports is data is already available. So the way you measure our performance is, are we able to process data faster? Are we more accurate? Are we cheaper? And we are, at the end of the day. On the tracking part, on the annotations, also annotation, just for people to know, is literally you have a frame, you have players, so you need to identify players, referee, ball, corner flags. So you have to kind of set the scene, and then you just draw bounding boxes around all the objects. So on that, using Bittensor, we're 100 times cheaper and 1,000 times faster than any competitors.
That's quite significant. So presumably in a situation like this, the key is distribution, and people maybe not wanting to use something a little bit more novel. What's been the kind of go-to-market strategy for you?
I mean, I think a lot of people that are trying to sell B2B products or services using, leveraging crypto rails are facing the same thing. What we do usually is we talk about the USP, and we don't mention the fact that we're getting to this point with a crypto crowd. So the go-to-market is very traditional. We have a data annotation product, we have a sports analytics product, and then we just compare apples to apples, and we show people that we can do more, faster, and cheaper. So that's pretty easy for us in that sense. And then the only difference, I would say, compared to other competitors, is people that are competing on our subnet, they know that when we are generating revenue, like some of the deep in protocol, we're going to literally buy back tokens with the real world money we generated, with the value we captured from the real world. So that's the difference between us and our competitors, is we keep incentivizing our subnet. Does that make sense? Sometimes I know there's a lot of moving parts.
It does make sense. I mean, I'm struggling to wrap my head around the incentive mechanism within the Bittensor ecosystem, but I'm sure we can dig into that a little bit more. Before we do, we're going to take a quick break so we can remind you about the sponsors that make the Sport Crypto podcast possible. This podcast is sponsored by the Hedera Foundation. The most beloved sports brands understand that what fans want is simple, a reason to be passionate. The Hedera Foundation enables brands and fans to share their passion on-chain using the Hedera network, the most used sustainable enterprise-grade DLT for the decentralized economy. This podcast is also supported by Credenza. Credenza harnesses blockchain technology to power a real-time data synchronization platform that transforms customer data ecosystems. They make data more relevant and actionable for sports brands, teams, leagues, and IP. Find out more at credenza3.com. Welcome to part 2. If your brain has been keeping up with this, I know mine has struggled. We left part 1 at the complications and explanations around kind of the incentive mechanism. So obviously within a traditional model, you have a centralized, data set that is being accrued by a business. They are trying to gain the best data set that they possibly can by paying Reddit to allow them to scrape all the data on there and like just scraping the internet and yada, yada, yada. With you have a situation where you're incentivizing lots and lots of third parties to contribute to this bigger data set. That's the layman's terms, right?
Data set and model. So both sides of this of the coin.
So to give people a understanding of like why this is a big deal from a distributed perspective, from a decentralized perspective. A really good example is more traditional DePIN projects. So basically decentralized infrastructure. So rather than having a centralized telecommunications service where you're paying people to go and put up towers, there are lots of decentralized versions of this where they are incentivizing people to just put something in their room. So imagine this is just by my window and I'm contributing network effect to that network. And these are getting really popular, whether that's in stuff like mapping, in telecommunications and so on and so forth. And actually compute makes a ton of sense, right? Because it takes an inordinate amounts of power from a centralized entity to do this. So the decentralized version makes a ton of sense. I just want you to go through because the key thing here is the incentivization mechanism for me, which I think is the most complex bit. So I'd love you to go a bit more deeper on that for Score specifically.
So if we go back to what Bittensor is, so every single day there's 7,200 tau. So tau being the Bittensor token that are created. So it's inflation, right? All the subnet teams, so all the subnet owners, all the projects on Bittensor are then receiving part of that. The way they are ranked is based on their token. So there's a main token, there's a sub token, but I'm not going to jump into all the details right now. But the more popular, the more efficient, and the more trusted your team is, the higher your rank is going to be, and the more money you're going to get from the daily emissions. So that kind of set the basis of the incentive mechanism. So people know that whatever happens, they would get money out of Bittensor on every single day. Then within the subnet, 41% of the money we receive goes to people that are actually doing machine learning services. So bringing AI models, building AI models, trying to find the right data, the right edge, a different approach. So they're receiving this money on a daily basis. 41% also go to validators, so people that are checking the work and see who's performing good, who's not performing well, and who deserves basically to get most of the rewards. And then subnet owners are receiving 18%. I mean, the balance we're receiving the balance. The way we need to set the incentive mechanism is knowing that all of this money is going to flow in anyway. We need to find a way to really reward people that are bringing the best solutions, but also solutions that are going to be good enough for us to then sell a product. So it's tricky, honestly. It's a constant battle between trying to get people excited about the vision, but also push people to provide good models. It's tough, but actually it's why it's so efficient.
What are some of the pain points in this kind of setup rather than having a centralized version of it?
I would say it's prone to attacks. So I'm not saying hacks. I'm saying people trying to game the system. So there's an incentive, but actually that's the reason also why the product is so good, because every single day you're expecting someone to try to find a way to get the rewards without actually doing the work. So it pushes you to really bring better versions of your game every single day, if that makes sense. So it's the biggest difference. Obviously, if you run an in-house team, no one in your team is going to try to challenge what you do every single day and try to flip the company over every single day.
So I think, Max, the best thing to do is to round out talking about the actionable use cases for Score, right? Because I think it's all well and good when people were talking about decentralized telecommunications and then going, wow, this is a great idea, but no one's actually signing up to the plans. No one's actually using this decentralized version of internet or whatever it may be, or social media, right? You know, we've had like other Farcasters that now are like pretty widely used, and I know Blue Sky isn't on chain, but it does use it's kind of using like decentralized ethos at least, and so there is some usage now of these products. And then we're seeing it also in B2B, right? With stable coins and tokenized equities, where these are being deployed on decentralized networks, and the consumer doesn't really know or care, but they are being used on the B2B front. For you, where are you currently seeing Score be used by customers, and then where do you want it to go?
So we have at the moment we have two different type of customers. First, we work with sports hedge funds. So what they see in Score is a way for us to be better on sports markets, and most importantly, in-game. So they would leverage the computer vision power to know what to do with their bets in game. So that's one thing. That was the shortest route to revenue for us. Second type of customers we have is obviously scouts, because what they see, with Score is a very structured approach to collecting low quality video, but using the same standard across all leagues, all levels, to really see how they would find gems across different, leagues, levels, countries, yada, yada, yada. So scouting is a huge use case for Score. If you think Score like in a football way, think about Score in a football way. And then obviously managers will use the same thing, but scouts are really excited about that.
That's interesting. And so talk to me about the hedge fund side of things. Is that like betting syndicates?
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, when they are large enough, they consider themselves hedge funds because they have neutral market approaches, which means they are moving so much money that they have to make sure they can get like a positive return anyway. But yeah. So yeah, that's a large betting syndicate. Yeah, for sure.
And then on pitch, so you talked about some of the really big teams deploying a ton of money because the fees they're paying for players are inordinate, right? And so if you're paying £50 million for a striker, you're going to spend £2 million a year on a data firm to provide you data, right? Obviously, you mentioned that you're kind of going from the ground up, maybe smaller teams that might have more difficulties paying those kind of fees. Does it also make it more difficult because then you're trying to get data and imagery on players that are playing on pitches that might not have cameras and stuff like that?
Yeah, pretty much. The good thing about football is obviously that it's the biggest sport in the world. So even if you go to a grassroots level, everyone now has, I don't know if you saw them, but there's like new cameras that people can put on the side of the pitch.
VO ones, yeah, and they've replaced it with the phone now, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So actually they're pretty consistent. So we can run algorithms across VO type of footage and then start make it, good enough for us to get insights.
So the footage doesn't even have to be good.
That's the point. That's the reason why we're using a decentralized crowd as well, is because it gives us the ability to be like resilient and to be very good even with low quality video. Yeah, that's one of the biggest USP.
Why does it make it better if it's decentralized to have?
Yeah. So
why is it better to take in that?
So the only reason is because the incentive mechanism is so efficient that we can actually spend more time. If I had to sell something in a traditional way, I would focus on elite clubs because I would know that all the money I'm investing would probably be paid back quicker if I'm working with Man City. So I would have no incentive in trying to build a model for low quality videos. Since it's completely decentralized now and we don't have to support the cost of, all the GPUs, yada, 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 I can really focus on creating a universal model that can ingest good videos, bad videos, just because we don't have to bear the costs of the dev basically.
So obviously in soccer that makes sense, but in the US there's a lot more of a mature, lower division sports setup in terms of the draft system and college sport as well. Where is the edge there for you?
Obviously, if I go back to our three-step workflow, sometimes we could cross all boards, but sometimes people are really interested in one of the building blocks. And there's a huge appetite in the US for our ability to annotate data at scale, because there's a lot of teams in college sports, and it's still painful, time-consuming, and pretty costly for people to annotate all of that data. So it's a good way for us to kind of enter the market. And then when we have access to all of that data, we could literally start showing people where our scoring system could help. So I would say in the US, the approach would probably be try to enter more on a very low level type of task, and then show that we're helpful. But there's a lot of appetite. We're already talking to different people that are evolving around college sports.
There are amateur sports now becoming pretty famous, like Sunday league teams that sell out arenas, and greenfield sports as well, that maybe don't set up with the analytics side in mind. They're just thinking like, how do we commercialize this as fast as possible? How do we make people watch this? How do we make people play this? There could be something interesting there for you as well, because a lot of the more mature kind of traditional data players will be saying, well, when those guys have lots of money and they've got money to spend on data, then we'll be there.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring this, affordable, fast, reliable computer vision layer, I would say. And also, I'd love people to, reach out to us and try to build stuff with us. Obviously, we can't just build everything at the same time. But if, someone is, I just had a conversation like a few days ago with someone completely fond of, pickleball, for instance, in the US. They're playing pickleball, playing paddle. Obviously, this is a small sport compared to football. But there's a lot of fans. There's a lot of people that are trying to build rankings and stuff. Obviously, they're using videos. So I would be happy to help, but we would need experts to help building those products, I would say.
Well, that's really, really fascinating. I mean, look, at the risk of delving even deeper into this rabbit hole, I think we should maybe round out there. Max, where can people find out more about you and what Score are doing?
Yeah, mainly on X, I would say at the moment. So on X, the handle is We Build Score, and yeah, we're sharing everything we're doing. We're trying to share some good content on football. We're going to add a few sports in the next few weeks. So yeah, X is probably the best way to connect with us.
Awesome. You can find me there as well at Pep Barisha, or on LinkedIn, Pep Barisha as well. You can find us at Sporting Crypto _ Sporting Crypto on X, Sporting Crypto on LinkedIn, and then sportingcrypto.com is the website. Please do subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel. You'll be notified every time we release a new episode. Thanks very much once more for listening, and have a good day. Before we do leave you, I just need to remind you that what we've said during this show is not financial or business advice, and this content is for informational purposes only. Web3 is underpinned by crypto, and crypto is volatile, meaning you can lose money if you're buying these assets personally or as a business. Where we're recording right now in the UK, the majority of crypto asset companies are unregulated. So just that quick disclaimer before we leave you. Thanks once more, and have a great day.